Hi, this is Marissa Chaplin, part of Chaplin Group of Keller Williams. So you're thinking about writing an offer. How exciting. I want to share my screen with you and go through exactly what the offer looks like, how we're going to structure the offer, and I'll also talk about ways to strengthen your offer. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. All right, so this document is the standard agreement for the sale of real estate. I'm going to go through it bullet point by bullet point so that you have total confidence and knowledge about what you're signing. Let me preface this by, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your Chaplin Group agent. We will be more than happy to help give additional explanation and answer any questions you have. We want you to feel comfortable and confident in what you're signing. So you should be able to see the standard agreement of sale on my cursor as well. This first page of the agreement of sale is the who's who and the what's what of the agreement. Your names as buyers will appear in this upper left quadrant, along with the seller's names here on the right. As I scroll down, you'll see it says property. This is going to be information of the property specific to the one you're wanting to buy. The address, the township, school district, the tax identification number that your agent or myself will get off of the tax record for you. Underneath that is our contact information as your buyer agent. So this is where you'll see my name or your Chaplin Group agent's name, along with our company, Keller Williams. Underneath that is the list agent's representation. So that's the list agent's name and their company information. On to page 2. Today, you will see at the very top the date of when we're writing this offer. And sometimes I prepare offers in advance. So if that's the case, it'll be the date in which we are going to submit the offer to the sellers. Underneath that, you'll see at big bullet point number 2, purchase price. And then we're going to type it out just like on a check. So if it's $250,000, you'll see the number and then you'll see the words as well. Underneath that, bullet point 2A.1 is where we'll have our deposit. Typically, the deposit is 1% of your offer. So for a $250,000 home, I would expect no less than $2,500. Some people like to round up to $3,000. For a $100,000 home, minimum of $1,000 is typically what we expect, and other agents expect as well. Now, this is a point in where you can strengthen your offer. Your deposit is your money. It goes towards your closing costs and your purchase down payment of the home. So this money is yours. It comes back to you on the day of closing. Where it is at risk is if you default and break the loan. So if you just terminate the loan and say, hey, I got cold feet, I'm walking away, you're forfeiting this money on the table and leaving it with the sellers. So that's important for you to know. It is at risk if you default on the loan. However, if you carry through to settlement, you'll be just fine. That money is yours. It comes back to you on day of closing towards your down payment and closing costs. The other thing I want to say here is you can strengthen your offer here to show the sellers that, especially if you're competing and you want this house, you love it, you might want to consider upping your deposit to $5,000 or even $10,000 or anywhere in between. This is basically your skin in the game. So obviously the more you put here conveys to the seller, the less likely you will be the one to just terminate, get cold feet, and forfeit the money. Where for some people, they may be willing to leave $1,000 or even $2,000 on the table. It'd be much more of an ouch to leave 5,000, 6, 7, or more on the table. So it's your skin in the game to show you're serious about the purchase of the home. So we'll put that amount here. Another thing you need to know is that check must be cut to the list agent's company. Our transaction coordinator will give you all the details about that once we come under contract, but that check gets cut within 5 days of coming under contract. So you need to have that money accessible to you here at the front end of the process of purchase. Bullet point 3, this is where we put seller assistance, either a dollar amount or a percentage. Bullet point 4 is the settlement date we are proposing. You'll see it says settlement date is blank or before. So it's on or before this date. You also, if you have flexibility for settlement, our agents can type in, we are flexible here as well. On to bullet point number 5, dates and times of essence. This is more or less an expiration date for your offer. Usually it's 24 hours. I've seen it as short as 12. So say I submit an offer in the morning and we want to know that night, I might type in here 8 p.m. on same day of receipt of offer. Basically, we want to just narrow that down so you're not waiting around forever. I would say 24 hours is expected. However, there might be a situation where a seller is out of town and they say, well, we'll be in town on Sunday. So we might extend it to that length of time, but ultimately it's just the expiration date and the date we can expect to hear something back from the sellers, whether it's a yes, a no, or a counter. On to page 3. Zoning, we're going to type in here, it's zoned residential if that's the case. Otherwise, we'll type in the type of zoning is there. Point 7, fixtures and personal property. This is the paragraph you want to read that talks about everything that must stay with the home. This includes any sort of pool equipment, anything built in and attached to the house, like blinds. Even TV wall mounts are considered attached to the house and must stay with the home. You'll also see mailboxes have to stay, shades and blinds, any built-in appliances, which include your range or oven, your dishwasher, if there's a trash compactor or a built-in microwave, another one being a garbage disposal. All of those have to stay at the home. What's up for grabs is typically refrigerator, washer, and dryer. And we would type those 3 specific items in here at the lines below, right in this section. If you want those items and if the seller is willing to leave them, awesome. But it does become a negotiation piece. It's important to know here, none of these appliances convey with value to the home to increase the value, nor do they guarantee that they're functional or fully operational. So that's important for you to know as well. This is also where we would put all window treatments if you want draperies. Obviously the blinds have to stay and the curtain rods, but a seller could take the linens with them or fabric. So if you want those, we can put those in here as well. Another thing that at times gets added in here is a chest freezer, maybe a second refrigerator in a garage or in the basement, or even items that are unique to the home that just fit so well. Maybe there's a big island with a great counter and there's 4 bar stools. Hey, those are there, they fit really well. We might want to write in the bar stools as well. Sometimes there might be a movable rolling island. And if that's something you want, we put this in as well when it fits with the home. This really isn't the place to do personal furniture like dining room sets or couches or other furniture sets in bedrooms or that sort of thing. Those get taken care of and agreed upon outside of the agreement of sale. But things that would be specific to the house are what get listed here. You'll see underneath there is a section that says excluded items as well. So maybe there's something on the property that you don't want. Maybe there's an old icky freezer in the basement and you say, we want that removed. I totally get it. I've written that up for my buyers. This is where we'd put excluded, meaning we expect this to be removed from the property. Onto your mortgage contingency. This is where we're going to check mark waived or elected. Now, just because you're getting a loan doesn't mean you have to elect a contingency. What is a contingency? A contingency basically is a portion of the agreement of sale that would protect your deposit we talked about on page 2 in order to get the deposit back should you have to terminate the contract. So the agreement of sale is contingent on certain things happening, such as getting your loan. So as I mentioned just a minute ago, you don't have to elect this. If you're in a multiple bid scenario, you might want to consider waiving it, but it is just a little bit higher risk for your deposit to do that. To the seller, it's going to feel like, oh, well, it might as well be a cash offer because there's no contingency for the mortgage there. So it does strengthen your offer in a multiple bid scenario to waive it. However, more times than not, our buyers elect the mortgage contingency, meaning if you can't get your loan for some reason, you can terminate and safely get your deposit back because you're unable to get your loan. We'll fill in the loan details here for you, as well as your interest rate, who your lender is, and what the terms are. Underneath that, right here on line, let's see here, 414 or 114, excuse me. This is a date that your lender is going to need to keep. This is basically saying the mortgage commitment is due by the date we fill in this box. So typically that's going to be 4 to 6 weeks after writing our offer. But again, all the terms in the agreement of sale are negotiable. This is a date that will say to your lender, Mr. or Mrs. Lender, we need the mortgage commitment by typically a week prior to closing. So no need to worry about that date. It's something your lender has to maintain. On to page 4. If you are a FHA loan or a VA loan, we're going to fill in your purchase price here in this box. This box specifically talks about your rights and endorsements, acknowledgments. Because you're getting a government-backed loan, there's some information you should read through here. On to the next page, point 9, change in buyer's financial status. Basically, I tell all my buyers here, you don't want to do anything to jeopardize getting your loan. If you have to make a big purchase, and sometimes it's things we don't even think about, like, hey, my child needs braces, let's open up a credit line for that. That simple task could jeopardize your ability to get your loan because it would impact your credit score. Other big purchases like furniture or buying a car or a boat, these things could impact getting your loan. So if you have a question about it, make sure to call your lender to say, hey, I'd like to charge this. It's a big item. Am I safe to do it? And they'll tell you honestly. A lot of this won't apply. If you're a cash loan, a cash buyer, you won't have a loan at all. So the box up above would be blank, nothing to worry about. We'll jump right to your inspection contingencies, which we're about to come up next. In this next section, seller's representations, you'll see the water type and the sewer type, and we're just acknowledging what the seller has at the property. Usually it's public water, public sewer, but sometimes it's on-site water, meaning well, or individual on-lot sewage disposal system. So we'll mark that there. If you have a septic system, I recommend reading through this portion of the agreement of sale just to familiarize yourself with septic ordinances. This next section here, land use restrictions. This is really only going to apply to you if you have big open parcels of land. If you have more than 10 acres, you might fit into the Clean and Green Tax Conservation Program, Right to Farming, Open Space Act. These are all only going to apply if you have a lot of land. So if we're purchasing like a home with a lot of land, we'll go over this in more detail, or feel free to just read through it and let me know if you have questions. Real estate disclosure law. This is basically saying that any home can't be split into more than 4 residential dwelling units. Most buyers don't intend to do that at all, but it's just making you aware. Waiver of contingencies. This next section is your inspections. You have the right to have a home inspection. What's interesting is in this market, home inspections are often being waived. You will I only ever recommend doing that if you yourself feel comfortable and confident with the house. Obviously, your chaplain group agent is really going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly with every home. They'll tell you their opinion. There have been times I've said to my buyers that I myself would feel comfortable writing and waiving inspections on this property, or no, I wouldn't. And so we'll tell you our honest opinion, but ultimately it's your decision. You have the right to have a home inspection. So if you're electing a home inspection, that's first here. The elected column is on the left. You'll see the waived column on the right. And whatever you choose to do, you'll initial in one of those boxes, elected or waived. So home inspection, wood infestation, these are done by the same inspector, home and wood. Next is deeds, restrictions, and zoning. This would be if you were looking to rezone a property or had specific questions for the township about deeds and other restrictions. Water, so if you have a well, you may want to test your water to make sure it's safe to drink. Radon. If you don't know what radon is, let me give you a quick little snippet here. Radon is an odorless, colorless gas. It's emitted from the crust of the earth. It is the second leading cause of lung cancer, second to smoking, when you're breathing it in and inhaling it. So if someone's living in a basement, you may want to choose to opt for a radon test. When a home is built, that radon in the crust of the earth can be disturbed and filter into a basement. It's a heavy gas, so radon is tested in the basement or lower level. However, if doors are opening and windows are opening, it's naturally escaping your home. The test is typically $150. If you do have high radon, it's measured in picocuries. What they're saying right now is anything above a 4.0 or higher means you need a radon mitigation system. If that's the case, that's typically around $950 to $1,000 to put in. However, it's at 4.0 or less, then you don't need a system and the house passes. The other thing to note here is if you have a high radon result, 4.0 or 104.0, it doesn't matter. A radon mitigation system is going to take care of the problem for you. We can get into more details on radon if you have additional questions there. Other things I didn't mention is a home inspection is typically $300 to $350. You would want to look for a home inspector that's NAHI or ASHI certified, NAHI or ASHI certified to do home inspections. Wood infestation is typically $75 if you're doing a home inspection as well. However, if you're only doing a wood infestation, then you might be charged a little bit more, maybe $100 or $125 to just do that one inspection. If you are a VA loan, you have to do a pest inspection, a wood infestation. That's going to be required, but the seller will be the one to pay for it. Water test, that's going to be anywhere from $100 to $150. Radon, like I said, $150. A septic inspection, that could be $250 to $350, depending on the company. The sellers will have just pumped the tank to make sure it's empty and ready for testing. Property and flood insurance. This would be elected if you are in a potential flood zone or aren't sure. But many times I have my buyers elect this simply because it's a way to protect your deposit for homeowners insurance. That's what property insurance is. So if for some reason you couldn't get your homeowners insurance, then you would be able to terminate, get your deposit back because you elected property insurance. So it's just an extra little precaution there. But to be honest, I've never had anybody not be able to get homeowners insurance. Next, property boundaries. This would be if you wanted a survey done because you were, let's say, for example, purchasing a big parcel of land, many acres, or maybe it's mountainous acres and you just don't know where the pins are. You can opt to have a survey. However, surveys are quite expensive. And so frankly, I've never had anyone elect it. It doesn't mean that you can't. It just, I would say, is more rarely done. Usually sellers have a good idea of where the boundaries are. Finally, lead-based paint hazards disclosure. This is basically testing for lead in paint. However, I've heard an inspector say to me he would recommend just painting over it if there is lead paint in the house. Again, this is one of those that's rarely elected because homes built prior to 78 and painted prior to 1978 probably have lead. But as long as you're not licking the walls or consuming the paint, which I hope you're not, if you paint over it, you should be fine. Lead paint is a hazard when it's ingested, so I've been told, but of course I'm not a health professional. All of the inspections that you would elect are at your expense as the buyer. So the seller doesn't pay for them, you pay for them, and you want to pay for them because you have the rights then to the report. The other thing to note, if a home is in less than pristine condition, sometimes spending $350 up to $600, depending on what inspections you get done, can be the best money you've ever spent to show, wow, maybe this house is much worse than I thought. So then you've only spent a few $100s on a home that could save you a lot of heartache and a lot of money in repairs later on. in a market that's highly competitive like we're in currently, I do recommend and advise you to consider waiving home inspections and these other inspections as well, because that I'm seeing across the board is one of the factors that's helping to win bids. Higher price, flexible closing date, waived inspections. That's what we're seeing win right now. Again, you always have the right to have inspections. It's at your choice that you decide to have or not to have. But many times we're seeing inspections in this crazy market lose the bids. That's just specific to our market right now. In a more balanced market, inspections are very normal. The inspection contingency timeframe is 10 days, meaning from the time we come under contract, in those first 10 days, all inspections have to be completed and we have to get our reply to inspection over to the seller. In a reply to inspection, your agent will help you ask the seller for repairs to be made for items that are home devaluing or safety issues. These are active leaks, maybe some electrical problems, issues with a roof, things of that nature. A reply to inspection is not the time to ask for walls to be painted or ceiling fans to be installed or anything of that sort of scenario. Those are preference items. The inspection reply is supposed to be things that are safety or home devaluing, like a high radon result. And then at that time, we would submit our reply to inspection for some of those repairs to the seller. They have the right to accept, reject, or to counter. So we kind of re-enter negotiations at this point. And like I said, we have to get that to the seller on day 10. Now, if there's a well and a septic, we might extend, instead of 10 days, we may say 14 to even 20 or 21, because those tests can take a little bit longer because a well test has to be sent to a lab and received back. But we'll help you navigate all of that. And then we'll help you interpret the inspection report. I highly recommend you attend inspections. Now, a thing to note is only you can be at the inspection with anyone else who's on the contract as well, whether that's a spouse, a partner, or if it's a parent and you purchasing a home together, whatever the configuration. The names of the parties on the agreement of sale are the only ones who are allowed to attend inspection. This is not a time to have mom and dad come to look at the house or to show it to extended family. We would have to get special permission for that if that's the case. All right, moving on, titles, surveys, and costs. So basically the seller has to convey the home with marketable title. And in order to do that, we need to employ a title company to start that process to make sure we know what outstanding liens, typically it's their own mortgage, are against the property. So within 7 days, we're going to submit our agreement of sale to the title company. There are several title companies in the area we highly recommend because let's face it, most buyers don't have a title company in their back pocket that they even know about to use. So typically, if that's the case, there's several we recommend who do great jobs for all of our buyers. But if you do have someone in mind, certainly let us know. As we move on, the coal notice. This is basically saying, we know Pennsylvania is a coal mining state in many areas. If coal is being mined under your property, you do not have rights to it. So that's important for you to know. Again, I've never had a buyer find coal on their property, but someone must have somewhere in order for it to be in the agreement of sale. Notices, assessments, and municipal requirements. If the seller were to be notified of something from the township, they need to convey that to us within 5 days of receiving said notice. So maybe that's a notice on the door or in the mail saying, hey, there is going to be a highway going through your backyard, or we're installing public sewer lines in the road. The sellers have the obligation to get us that correspondence within those 5 days. This next section is for condos and planned communities or homeowners association. We're going to check mark if it's a condo or a homeowner association here. On to page 11. If you are purchasing a condo, there's information as well in section B and C line 586 and 593. I recommend reading. You will receive, whether it's an HOA or a condominium, you will receive a document called the receipt of documents that needs signed by you after reviewing the condo rules and regulations and other documentation, because we need the seller to know that you've seen the rules and regs and you're willing to comply with them. Real estate taxes and assessed value. Every home has an assessed value. This is not market value, two separate numbers, but ultimately this is saying if you buy a home, let's say for less than the assessed value, you have the right to have it reassessed and go to the township on that. Taxes may go up, but hopefully they would go down if that's the case. If it's a mass township assessment, then it's going to be everybody is getting reassessed. Okay. Point 18, maintenance and risk of loss. This is saying the seller has to maintain the property in the same condition in which we saw and wrote the offer. So God forbid something happened, a pipe were to leak, or some other disrepair happens, a tree limb falls and breaks a window. The seller has to repair that in a like way to when we wrote the offer. Home warranties, point 19, you have the right to ask for a home warranty from the seller or to purchase one yourself. I always say there's a lot of fine print with home warranties, so make sure to read the fine print. However, you know, they have come in handy, and I have just seen where they've been a great benefit to clients as well. Point 20, this is the recording of the deed. So basically it just says your standard agreement of sale, the purchase price on there will be made public record at the Recorder of Deeds office. That's very normal. Point 21, assignment, is saying the agreement of sale is binding on both parties. Any changes should be put in writing and signed by everyone. Point 22, governing law, venue, personal jurisdiction. That's just saying this is a valid construction of an agreement of sale. Attorneys type these up. I didn't sit here and type this up on your behalf. I just filled in the blanks. Point 23 would be a foreign investment property. If the property you're buying is a foreign investment, you're going to want to read this. Typically, it's not the case. So if that doesn't apply, we can move right on. Point 24 is about PA Megan's Law. You have the right to search PA Megan's Law, type in the address to see where convicted offenders are in proximity to the home you're considering buying. That may influence whether you decide to purchase or not purchase a home. I've worked with first responders as well in real estate, and they've even said, but the bottom line is your neighbor after you move in may sell their house and you never know and cannot control who purchases it. So you take this with a grain of salt, but you have the right to look at the PA Megan's website and just acclimate yourself to the area. So something we always like to point out to our buyers there. Point 25, representations. Anything that was represented about the house had to be honest and true to the seller's best knowledge in the home's current condition. Point 26, default, termination, and return of deposits. We've kind of talked about this along the way. If you elect your mortgage contingency and for some reason can't get your loan, then you can get your deposit back. If you've elected inspections and we can't come to terms again, you can get your deposit back. If there's another document called an appraisal contingency, meaning the home has to appraise at our under contract price or higher, and let's say it doesn't, or we can't come to terms, then you can terminate and get your deposit back. So there's many ways we as your Chaplain Group agent are going to build in those safety nets for you to protect your deposit as much as possible. Bottom line is, if you just the week before closing say, I've decided not to close, unfortunately, there's not much we can do. You're forfeiting your deposit, and that would be at your decision. Okay, moving on. This box right here will always be checkmarked. Seller is limited to retaining sums paid by buyer. So basically, if this is checkmarked, which it always will be with your Chaplain Group agent, it's saying if there were to be threats of a lawsuit between the buyer and the seller, if the seller kept your deposit, then they're limited to retaining that deposit. Again, this next section is also about lawsuits. If there were to be threats of a civil action, you would first submit to mediation, trying to work out the problem. Once there has been a release, then everyone, including all brokers, all realtors, all people involved, would be fully released once a civil judgment has been made. Point 29, there is a recovery fund that exists to help reimburse court costs should you be unable to obtain them. There's a phone number there for more information if you have questions. Point 30, I always recommend here with communications between buyer and seller, everything has to be promptly delivered. We can't be dragging our feet with accepting and giving ratified documentation. I also always put a plug in here. Sometimes buyers and sellers know each other. If that's the case, I highly recommend we keep those boundaries really firm and that you as the buyer do not reach out to the seller. Let's say you were driving by slowly and you saw the seller outside gardening or just outside on their property. I don't recommend rolling your window down and saying, hey, I'm your buyer. I just was driving by to see how the house is. The reason being is I don't know what gets said. I'm not privy to those conversations, and I can't protect you from a he said, she said type moment, which who knows could lead to a lawsuit. So if you have questions for the seller, I recommend contacting your chaplain group agent. They're going to contact the listing agent who will contact the seller. I know that's a long, annoying chain, and we'll get that information back to you, but it's the best way we can protect you moving forward with the transaction. We're nearing the end. Point 31, headings, basically saying any of the major bullet points in the agreement of sale are simply headings. You need to read the paragraph in order to fully grasp what they were trying to tell you. So I always have a little chuckle at that one. Again, like I mentioned at the start of this video, I'm just giving you the big highlights, but feel free to read through more thoroughly because we want you to be comfortable and confident in what you're signing. The final page here, point 32, special clauses. This is where we'll have check marked if there is, let's say, a settlement of other property, an appraisal contingency, an escalation clause, any additional documentation or requests would go on this final page. At the bottom, you'll have several initial boxes here of buyers receive the consumer notice, a closing cost estimate, deposit money notice, and the lead-based paint hazards disclosure form if it applies, meaning the house was built prior to 1978. You'll initial all those boxes, you'll sign, and you'll initial at the bottom corner of every page and any inspections you may want to waive or elect. So hopefully that answers some of your questions. Certainly if you have more questions, then feel free to reach out to your chaplain group agent. Like I said, we're here to help you. We want you to really feel like I'm confident in what I'm signing and comfortable to move forward. All right, thank you so much.